Hey folks, it's me, Big Ugly Jim. I hope you enjoyed my little yammer here, and if you do, please consider commenting, liking, following, subscribing, joining my Patreon, the link of that being below in the description. I don't need financial support, and making these videos is not my bread and butter, so don't feel any pressure to support me financially or anything. I make that option available just as a way for people to show me that kind of support if they want. The big thing I want is to be able to see which of these videos is interesting, what you liked or didn't like, that sort of thing. The feedback is always helpful, and I do have the narcissistic dream of being someone who creates worthwhile content that people care about. So the likes and the comments and stuff help. On to the real meat of the thing. I'm a fan of punk rock. Hard to imagine I know, but I am. I wasn't always. I've talked about that before and how I came to love punk maybe later than some of my contemporaries did. I've been a punk musician and a punk promoter for like 20 years, and I still see myself as a punk. To me, being punk is about pushing back, but it's also like sharing a positive worldview that was largely very leftist and anti-authoritarian. The bands I credit with getting me into punk are the Dead Kennedys and Bad Brains. Now, this video isn't going to be a what is punk, because I think that's silly. Everybody knows that punk is a warm blanket. Also, I know that what I consider to be punk and what a lot of other people consider to be punk can be very different things. And there's plenty of stuff, scads of stuff, that some people consider to be punk that are just miles away from what I like. And that's okay. It turns out that I am not the grand poobah of punk rock. And there's no sorting hat that puts punk into its accepted houses. What I want to focus on is a few of the things I've seen recently in the media around punk. It'll not be my goal to say, this is not punk, but I do plan on sharing my 2 cents on these things. So we're going to start with Glenn Danzig's recent comments in an interview about how the Misfits could never happen now because of dumb old woke people and cancel culture. Oh, Glenn. Glenny Glenjamin Glennerington, I'd love to tell you that you're surprising me here, but you absolutely are not. To be fair, I've never been big on the Misfits. Well, maybe these ones, but definitely not these ones. In the beginning of my punk rock journey, I hated the sound quality of most of their recordings. To be fair, there's a lot of songs of theirs that I do really love, and I've always loved when bands from my local scene cover those Misfits songs. But the Misfits as a band never really struck a chord with me. I think it's because the band was always a little bit too edgelord for me. Old man say edgelord, Lamau. The Misfits felt, to me, like a bunch of high school kids writing what high school kids thought of as edgy lyrics with all the grace and nuance that implies. I've got some to say, I killed your baby today. Okay, buddy. Add to that Danzig's voice, which grates on me, and the faux emotions often relied on, like they're weak.
Mother, tell your children not to hold my hand. Tell your children not to understand, oh mother. Father, do you want to bang heads with me? Father, do you want to feel everything? Oh, Father.
Now, to be fair, that song was written as a big fuck you to the PMRC, and I am fully behind that. But come the fuck on. So the Misfits formed in 1977. Their goal, I think, was to speak their truth and stand up to the world. Now, you can buy Misfits merch at Walmart. Sometimes we become what we hate. They were even pro wrestlers for a while, just like Insane Clown Posse. Ooh, punk cred. I personally found their embracing of the grift to be really uncomfortable. While they were never, to my knowledge, like an anti-commercial band, I've never been a fan of commercial punk rock, and the Misfits were definitely all about the Benjamins. I didn't care much about them, but I wasn't surprised when I heard the stories of at least one of them, Michael Graves, whinging about how it's not fair that punk rock just doesn't accept right-wing politics. I was less surprised than a lot of people when this happened. That's Michael Graves from the Misfits flashing the co-opted "it's only an okay" sign, white power symbol, and announcing himself as a Proud Boy. And in case you think that's taken out of context, never mind that it comes from his official site, He's currently a potential defense witness for several Proud Boys who are being charged for their role in the January 6th insurrection. Fuck Michael Graves. I don't know whether or not Danzig is a conservative or a right wing militant or a vegan leftist community living theocrat. I don't care. But let's just take a moment to discuss. Could a band in these oh so trying times we live in be formed echoing that Misfits vibe? Horror punk? Absolutely. There's plenty of amazing new horror punk bands. Let me just take a moment to point out two from Calgary that I absolutely love, the Conniving Cadavers and 5 Cent Freak Show. I love these bands and they play very Misfits styled music. Horror punk tends to draw from the 50s horror genre and film, and there's a lot in both that genre and in horror punk that can be misogynistic and problematic. It doesn't have to be. You can write horrific content without relying on fetishizing violence against women, and lots of horrific content exists that doesn't rely on that. But to the question, could the exact band The Misfits be able to write their material in today's political climate? I think the answer is probably. I mean, they're still selling way bigger numbers than I ever will. And now they have that whole Western chauvinist demographic to boost their sales. So I really don't think it would have stopped them. Maybe I'm wrong as someone who hasn't given a half a turd about the band, but I'm pretty sure that most of their music isn't misogynistic, and a lot of the songs that people love best by the band aren't steeped in rape or racism. I mean, aside from Last Caress. But I think it's also fair to say that a band forming today wouldn't be the Misfits. They were a product of their time, and it's ridiculous to assume that any anachronistic aspects of the Misfits would still be in play if they were kids starting a band today. The culture they grew up in likely would have shaped their approach to being a band, and they'd probably not be as quick to sing about rape, or they would be quicker to do it to appeal to that side of the conversation. Either way, it's fucking hilarious to me when top musicians who've made an entire career off of their craft complain about cancel culture. Glenn, buddy, you seriously can't expect me to feel bad for you. When were you canceled, Glenn? Hell, Michael Graves is still touring and making money as a musician even after he came out as a Proud Boy, which, in my country, is a terrorist organization. And you can still buy your Misfits gear from fucking Walmart.com. With Misfits started as a brand new band in this climate, I don't think they'd have a problem finding success. But I do think their crowds would look a lot different. Sorry, Glenn. Just not buying it. The other thing I saw that I wanted to talk about was Andrew from Channel 5, formerly All Gas No Breaks, at an LA punk show. Now, I'll be straight up with you on this one. When I watched this, my brain kept saying, this is not punk rock. Only it is. It absolutely is. Even though it's not how my punk rock would behave. But that's the thing. My punk rock was never G.G. Allen. Was never Screwdriver. Was never the Mentors. I should mention that I once booked the Mentors. My buddy Mr. Plow wanted to do a tour with them. And I love Mr. Plow super much. And it was going to be the day before my birthday. The Mentors wanted a giant pile of money that was absolutely outrageous. The show would have been on I think a Monday or a Tuesday, and there was no way that this show would have been anything but me giving a lot of my hard-earned money to a band I genuinely dislike. But I also knew there was no way in grisly fuck the Mentors were going to get across the border. I had enough money that I could take the hit if I needed. I figured it was a gamble I'd win, and sure enough, they didn't make it, but Plow did. So, winning. There have always been parts of the punk rock world that I disliked, strongly hated, and even fought against. It would be ridiculous to say with wistful nostalgia that punk rock was a blemishless wonderscape of goodness all along. Where I loved the question everything motif of punk, I actually hate the question of the existence of the virus thing that some of the punks in this video were doing. I've partied loads. I've never snorted balloons full of nitrous or whatever, but I've definitely done plenty of drinking and drugs that probably made me look like some of the people in that video. And that's the thing about Andrew's videos, though. They show slivers of the world with honesty. This moment, it happened. These people got together for a 5,000 person concert in the middle of a pandemic. These people are real, and they're punks. This video is every bit as honest and real as my lived experiences with the punk rock world. My take on this, I absolutely think we should question everything. But I think we have to do a better job knowing how to question things. Early punks were not people with doctorates who were attracted to the youthful milieu of anger and social change. They were people who were fighting back. By the time I got into punk, I think people were getting better at questioning things and figuring out for themselves where they fit in. A lot of punks had read Hitchens and Dawkins and Sagan and had learned a little bit along the way about how to question things and how to validate your answers. But only a fool would think that's the only thing that's punk rock. So what is punk? It changes. There's always people that want to be the shift. Punk is frustration and rage of the world around it, and that can be shunted towards white nationalism and anti-vaccine views just as readily as it can be towards social justice and political activism. That's why we keep having these conversations, because there's always going to be people that try to move the goalposts for them. Anyways, that's my 2 cents. I've included the link to Andrew's video below, as well as I'll try and find a link to Glenn Danzig's. Fuck Glenn Danzig. He doesn't need my attention. But Andrew, definitely follow Channel 5. It's a great video, and I really genuinely love the work that he does. It's definitely difficult to watch that particular video because it's like, these are my people, only they're not my people. But these are my people. And part of the reason I do all the things I do is to reach my people and hopefully help them do better. Anyways, if you liked the video, like, subscribe, all that stuff. Huge special thanks goes to my one and only patron on Patreon, Mr. Shithead Dave Anderson. A punk rock name if ever I heard one. You too can have all the blissful glee of being a patron if you're so inclined. Either way, I just want to thank you for watching, and I want to thank you for taking the time with me to humor an old man as I said things like Lamau. So, thank you.